Hello and welcome back to another episode of AI Magic for Fiction Writers. Today we're going to be looking at Chat GPT and specifically how we can craft some excitement and potentially some intrigue by leveraging GPT's ability to suggest interesting plot twists and some interesting storylines. So what I've quickly done here is I have asked GPT to create a fictitious storyline. I gave it some general guidelines. I wanted it to be about two sisters that were traveling from the United States in the 1960s, and they are now in Rome. And so GPT gave me some characters. Isabella, she's the older sister, and Lucia, she's the younger sister. Lucia is vivacious and full of life and spontaneity, and her older sister, Isabella, is not quite that. In this scene, basically what's happening is Isabella is standing at a fountain and Lucia is standing right across the way, and Isabella wants to toss a coin in the fountain so as to make a wish that has to do with their mom. And there's some scene suggestions that GPT gives us. We're not going to actually utilize those. We could, certainly. There's nothing wrong with that. But I thought it would be more interesting to see what happens if all of a sudden Lucia, the younger sister, snatches the coin and offers it to the jazz musician. And so let's see what comes up. So Lucia, caught in the moment's euphoria and appreciative of the memories of the street musician's song invoked, impulsively snatches the coin from Isabella's hand. She winks at her older sister, causing a few chuckles from the gathering crowd, and then offers the coin to the jazz musician. Maybe your wish wasn't meant for music. And so there's now all this other tension that's happening here. GPT has suggested maybe we could, street musician turns out to be an old flame. But I want it to get maybe a little bit more animated than that. So what happens if the sisters start physically fighting and one of them ends up in the fountain? Continuation with a dramatic twist. Okay, so now GPT is reframing the scene progression. Following Lucia's impulsive decision to give away Isabella's coin, tensions rise. Isabella feeling like her desires and intentions are constantly being overshadowed by Lucia's spontaneity. You always do this, Lucia. Every time, just because you want to be the center of attention. So you can imagine what's going on. In the heat of the moment, a misplaced step pushes a push or a tug, and Isabella loses her balance, toppling into the fountain with a splash, drenched from head to toe. The crowd gasps, some laugh, while others express concerns. Oh, now it's time to introduce someone else. Again, we could go with these suggestions, but for the sake of this demonstration, let's see, a viral attention in the 60s? How would that happen? Apparently, it's a visitor from the future. A woman deeply offended at the behavior of the sisters calls the police. So, again, we're just trying to figure out what would happen if it could be anything. We could decide, no, that doesn't happen. But it's fun to brainstorm all sorts of interesting things. Amidst the shocked crowd, an older Italian woman draped in an elegant shawl with silvery hair neatly tied back watches the scene with growing distaste. She's deeply offended by the behavior of the sisters, feeling its disrespect to the historical and cultural significance of the fountain. Lucia, sensing the gravity of the situation, attempts to apologize to the older woman, but she remains unyielding. This is a sacred place for many. You cannot just come here and make a mockery of it. The police officers, after hearing both sides, decided to take the sisters to the local precinct for further questioning. They're not formally charged. They're given a stern warning about respecting public spaces and cultural heritage of the city. What could happen next? Plot twist. noticing the hum of one tune, Lucia feels a romantic longing for the Italian. All right, so we now have a new twist. We add some humor, possibly. Inside the precinct, the atmosphere is tense, and Lucia and Isabella wait to have their situation resolved. Lucia's attention, however, drifts to the immediate issue at hand when she notices one of the officers, a tall, dark-haired man, deep-set hazel eyes, talking softly to his colleagues. Every so often he hums a familiar tune, a song their mother used to sing. The melody, mixed with the gentle cadence of his voice, draws Lucia in. Where their eyes meet, there's a palpable charge in the unspoken understanding. She tries to maintain her composure. It was just a silly quarrel between sisters. We never intended for it to escalate this way. Matteo nods, his gaze lingering on Lucia. I understand, but the fountain holds lots of significance here. However, I believe everyone deserves a second chance. What could happen? A date in Rome, Isabella's reservation, Matteo's musical connection, a policeman's dilemma, Isabella's own journey. Let's let Isabella is now even more enraged at the thought of her sister using womanly ways to get out of the situation. As Lucia and Matteo's interactions grows noticeably warmer, Isabella watches with increasing irritation. She can't help but see Lucia's demeanor as a strategic play, using charm and allure to divert attention from the fountain fiasco. Really, Lucia? Isabella mutters under her breath, her gaze hardening. Is this how we solve our problems now? They continue. You always think the worst of me, don't you? The sisters' argument continues. The police station's sterile environment becomes amplifying with the intensity of their emotions. The officer exchanges glance, unsure of how to intervene in such a personal dispute. Matteo, sensing the escalation, steps in. This is neither the time nor place. I understand. Emotions are high, but we need to resolve this matter professionally. As tension continues to rise, Isabella, with a mix of defiance and mischief in her eyes, steps closer to Matteo. Officer Matteo, she starts, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. While my sister seems to have caught your attention, perhaps you could consider spending time with someone more grounded like me. Lucia, taken back, shoots her sister a look of disbelief. Is this really the time for games, Isabella? She retorts. Isabella smirks, ignoring her sister's protests. Why not? You're not the only one who can appreciate the charm of Rome and its residents. Matteo, clearly caught off guard, tries to maintain his professionalism. We must insist that we keep our focus on the matter at hand, but Isabella is undeterred. After all, you did mention giving second chances, didn't you? She quips, shooting a playful wink at Matteo. The sisters' duel. I think that actually might be the one I go with. Again, the sisters turn their rivalries into a physical altercation. Let's see what happens. The energy in the room goes thick with tension. Matteo's attempt to defuse the situation falls on deaf ears as the simmering rivalry between sisters boils over. First with our parents, then with our friends, and now with Matteo. Poor Matteo. Isabella, her pride wounded, retaliates. Oh, please, Lucia. Playing the eternal victim won't work here. You always act without thinking and expect everyone else to clean up after you. Without warning, Isabella lunges at Lucia, and within moments, the two are embroiled in physical altercation right in the middle of the police station. The police officers, shocked by the sudden outburst, scramble to separate the two. Amidst the chaos, Matteo calls for reinforcement, and a couple of officers pull the sisters apart. Panting and disheveled, the two sisters are locked in separate holding cells to cool off, but not before. Coffee calamity. Scene progression. Matteo, sensing the situation is about to escalate, he called out for coffee, hoping that offering the sisters a drink. See, that's a twist that I actually thought that Matteo was having the coffee, but no. What can I do to defuse the situation? Oh man, might help tensions, but fate had other plans. Dun dun dun. Just as the two sisters' altercation reaches its peak, a junior officer named Giuseppe rushes in with a tray of espresso cups. He's a younger and eager recruit, and this is one of his first days on the job. Seeing the commotion, his eyes widen and momentarily loses his balance. Lucia is struggling with Isabella, inadvertently pushes her sister, who crashes into Giuseppe, and the tray goes flying. And in an almost cinematic sequence of events, the hot coffee splatters all over Matteo's pristine uniform. The room goes silent. Matteo stands frozen, but not literally. Espresso dripping from his face and uniform. The rest of the officers are stunned. Giuseppe is mortified, his face red with embarrassment. The sisters momentarily distracted from their fight, gawk at the scene that they inadvertently, I don't know, doesn't seem very inadvertent to me, caused. I am so sorry, Giuseppe stammers, his voice barely audible. Matteo, taking a deep breath and wiping the coffee from his face, replies with forced calmness, "It's all right, Giuseppe, it was an accident." But his clenched jaw indicates his frustration. Isabella and Lucia, sensing they've crossed the line, look at each other with a mix of guilt and regret. "We are truly sorry, Officer Matteo," Isabella murmurs, her earlier defiance replaced with remorse. Okay, so now we've got this thing. It's flowing. Oh, so much fun. But I want GPT to suggest something incredibly. Can you please just a very unlikely development in this story? So I've been kind of feeding it lines, but now I want to give it some room to come up with a couple things here and see if we can't build off of it. Not that these were bad. Hey, clean the mess, bonds of shared humiliation, turning of events. Let's see what we got here. While Matteo, Isabella, Lucia, and Giuseppe are dealing with the aftermath of the coffee fiasco, the precinct door bursts open. In walks a tall man with striking features, wearing sunglasses, indoors, and exuding an aura of importance. Brilliant. Following him is an entourage of assistants, bodyguards, and a camera crew. The entire police precinct goes silent. With officers and criminals in the holding area, they sneak peeks. It's none other than Franco Bellini, Italian's most beloved film star of the era and an international sensation. He's in Rome shooting his latest movie, and as luck would have it, a minor scene requires a real police station's background. Given his charm and influence, he had easily convinced the police chief, who happens to be a big fan, to allow it. He removes his sunglasses, scans the room, landing on the coffee-soaked Matteo and the flabbergasted sisters. With a charismatic grin, he remarks, I've missed all the action. What's the story here? Matteo, despite being a disciplined officer, is a little starstruck and mumbles in explanation. An explanation. Their sister still processing their unlikely reality. Exchange glances, realizing this might be an opportunity. Without skipping a beat, Isabella steps forward, offering her hand to Franco. Signor Bellini. Ever thought of a story involving two estranged sisters rediscovering themselves in Rome with a dash of romance and comedy? Franco's eyebrows raise in intrigue. Go on. What could happen now? I got it. I got it. But Matteo, sensing that his moment for fame is slipping away, boom. I have some things I'd like to do there, but I'm just going to give GPT the opportunity to run with it. Let's see what happens. As the buzz and excitement surrounding Franco Bellini's unexpected arrival grow, all attention in the precinct gradually shifts to the charismatic movie star Lucia and Isabella, caught up in the thrill of potentially having the story turn into a movie or a deepening conversation with Franco. Giuseppe, too, he is trying his best to grasp the acting nuances that Franco shares with him, leading lighthearted and comical moments. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation. Matteo, however, stands a little apart, silently observing the scene. He had been the central figure just moments ago, mediating between the sisters, managing the coffee mishap, and taking charge of the situation. Now, with Franco's arrival, he suddenly relegated the background. The pain of jealousy strikes him, not so much for the limelight, but for the recognition of his hard work, the chance to be more than just an officer in a precinct. He had dreamed once, dreams of studying arts and drama, but family obligations. Wow, this is deep. Before we know it, Frank will be laying on a bed talking to GPT about his mother. Obligations and circumstances had pushed him into the police force. Seeing Franco and the sisters, Matteo's feeling renewed urge to seize the moment, clearing his throat loudly enough to draw attention. He steps forth. Signor Bellini, while I understand the appeal of the dramatic tale between sisters, perhaps there's room in your film for the story of an officer, one who's faced trials and tribulation yet harbors a passion for the arts. Franco, ever astute observer of human virtue, notices the earnestness in Matteo's eyes. Why don't you show me, he challenges. Without hesitation, Matteo breaks into a heartfelt monologue, a mix of his own life and a touch of fiction, showcasing his hidden acting talent. The precinct watches in awe. His voice, expressions, and his pain and his dreams all come alive in that moment. Not able at all to take Matteo seriously, the sisters, enveloped in the charm of Bellini, whisper in his ears, whisper in his ear, in a seductive manner. Please, please, rescue us from this wretched station. Franco's gaze is fixed on Matteo as he delivers an impassioned monologue. While the rest of the precinct is in awe of the display, Lucia and Isabella, intoxicated by the allure of the film world and the presence of Franco Bellini, see this as their escape route. They'd had enough. The precinct's drama for the day. Of course, they caused it all. As Matteo's voice rises, crescendoing into the climax of his monologue, Isabella leans closer to Franco, her red lips brushing past his ear, and whispers, Signor Bellini, wouldn't you want two damsels like us? You wouldn't want two damsels like us to suffer in a place like this, would you? Seizing the moment, adds a sultry tone, her sister does. We could be of much better use to you on a film set, don't you think? How provocative. Franco, ever the gentleman, but also a shrewd businessman, chuckles softly. He's been in the industry long enough to recognize an opportunity when he sees one. However, he's also keenly aware of the delicate situation at hand. He takes a brief moment, then responds with a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Ladies, while the silver screen does hold its appeal, perhaps it would be best for everyone if we first sort out this current predicament. Oh man, Bellini, you missed your opportunity. Just then Matteo finishes his monologue to the smattering applause from the officers in the room. Giuseppe, the youngest recruit, claps the loudest. Very eager Giuseppe. Franco, seizing the moment of transition, says, okay, Officer Matteo, that was truly impressive. You have my respect, but let's not forget why we're here. He gestures to the sister, suggesting they come to a resolution. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to ask GPT to wrap it up in a surprising way. This has gone on long enough. Please wrap up this storyline in a surprising way. Unexpected finale. As the precinct is abuzz with the presence of Franco Bellini, the seductive whispers of the sisters, and Matteo's passionate monologue, sudden power outage plunges the room into darkness. Of course, we need something apocalyptic to happen. There's a collective gasp in the rooms filled with confused murmurs. When the lights come back on, moments later, Franco Bellini is gone. In his place, on the desk, a classic film director's clapboard with a note scribbled on it. Life is the greatest drama of all. Keep living it passionately. FP. Oh, that's so good. The room is in shock. How did he vanish so swiftly? The sisters, their flirtatious allure, momentarily paused, looking around in confusion. Giuseppe is spinning in circles, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Matteo recovers quicker than the rest. Chuckles to himself. He walks over to the sisters and says, "It seems Signor Bellini left us," with more questions than answers. But isn't that what a great story does? Very dramatic, Matteo. The sisters exchange glances. Isabel, with a smirk, responds, "Officer, perhaps there's a script in all of this after all. A mysterious star who drew two dramatic sisters and a passionate cop." Matteo smiles, and don't forget, the young recruit. Oh, always looking out for Giuseppe. Just then, Giuseppe stumbles on a film script left behind on one of the chairs titled Roman Reconnection. Everyone laughs, realizing that perhaps they've been a part of Franco's movie after all. Oh my gosh, that is rad. That's so great. It was all part of the movie. That's really great reveal. I didn't see that coming. The scene fades with the sisters Matteo and Giuseppe leaving the precinct altogether, laughing, echoing behind them the grandeur of Rome waiting to embrace them in historic arms. The end. And of course, we've got GPT's footnote. Unexpected twist, merging the reality of fiction, leaves the characters and the audience pondering the thin line between life and the story as well, which it certainly did for me. I certainly hope that this has been fun. It's been fun for me. The whole point of this was to challenge you to engage with GPT. It can be silly, it can be ludicrous, it can be fun, it can be intentional. I mean, I could have taken a serious tone. There's just so many different things that could have happened, and this is kind of hyperbolic in the sense that I'm painting a kind of an exaggerated picture, but it harkens back to maybe our childhood and the old ad-libs that we would do where a story emerges with numerous different possibilities. And as writers, sometimes we're locked. We have tunnel vision for our story, for our plot, for our characters, and it becomes difficult to introduce things that are a shock to us personally. You know, we all know what it's like to share our plot line with someone and then they suggest something that's completely nonsensical and you're like, have you no shame? Don't you know? This is literature. In the context of GPT, we can definitely have some fun with it and not take ourselves or our stories too seriously. I hope that you've enjoyed this. Of course, reach out to me via email in the description below. I'm going to fill out an outline of today's journey, and you can reference it if it's helpful to you. I'm happy to send that to you. Thanks so much. And of course, it's the obligatory like and subscribe and click the bell and all that jazz that so many other people do much more eloquent than me.